Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Hello. Happy Sunday, guys. We'll get started soon. Can you guys hear me? Whoever's in, let me know. Hopefully the audio works. We'll give it a few minutes. Oh, thank you, Mark. Thanks for confirming. Wasn't sure if my headset was working, but thank you. Happy Sunday, all. I started off. Usually, live streaming goes around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I had to start a little later today. I was out hanging out with friends, so just got back. Hope you all are having a nice Sunday. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Hope you guys are all having a nice day. Bitcoin is making some moves right now at 108,000. This is looking very good. We're almost at the end of Q2. We were very hopeful to see Bitcoin stay above the $100,000, and it's I'd say 90% chance that it will remain above 100,000 before the end of Q2. That is going to look very, very good, especially for companies that are hedging Bitcoin. We talked a lot about, how high will Bitcoin go? We'll be covering a lot of plays like, IREN we're seeing have big time run ups. You know, CleanSpark, we'll be talking about CleanSpark as well. But this pure Bitcoiner here, it's not really a Bitcoin, it's a piece of chocolate. So how high is Bitcoin going to be going? We'll be talking about, miners, strategy, technical analysis, and also put it in the chat what you'd like for me to cover. But I will be sharing, technical analysis, Bitcoin strategy, the miners, even AI stocks, even other stocks that I believe have huge potential. So we will cover all of that. Definitely some upside. You know, we got this lovely iron bottle GPU clusters for AI, teams. Got my iron water bottle. Yeah, but Bitcoin's looking very good. It's climbing up right now. It looks like we got Mark, we got David. Hi, David. Thank you for joining. I appreciate your comment. I think it's an interesting time for miners. We've been beat down for so long. Glad I bought iron at $6, hoping for $30 before end of year. Wow, congratulations buying iron at, $6. I mean, buy when there's blood on the streets, right? We hear about, be greedy when others are fearful. So during March, April time when everything was down, that was the time to take a leap of faith. So congratulations, David. $6, you're in the money. So all good there. Welcome everyone. We'll be covering all of these stocks, Hive Digital. We can also cover them as well. Just hold on to, those requests. Put your comments in the chat. How high do you think Bitcoin will go before end of Q2? So we got, Monday. How high is Bitcoin going to go? Put it in the chat. Let's see. Right now, Bitcoin's making a move. All that news that we had with Trump, Elon divorce, we had, the Middle East war. It really took a toll on Bitcoin. People were selling off Bitcoin. It went down below 100K, but just think about it. Bitcoin hovering above 100K for close to, it got close to 50 days. How long did Bitcoin stay down, below 100,000? Think about it. We had Bitcoin reach 100,000 this year, and then we're worried about Bitcoin going below $100,000. Think about next year. Think about the following year. The expectations are rising for Bitcoin. That's really a good thing. So hoping for 100K at least. So thank you, David. And it's very possible we're not too far away from the all-time high. We may very well get it by tomorrow. Welcome, everyone. Put your requests, comments, questions in the chat. We will go through all those details. But interesting thing with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac consider Bitcoin for mortgage collateral, signaling a crypto-friendly shift in federal policy. We hear a lot about BlackRock ETF. It surpassed $72 billion in assets, highlighting rising investor demand for digital assets. Things have changed so much for the market. Traditional finance, you have Fidelity, BlackRock buying up Bitcoin like there's no tomorrow. They won't just keep doing this forever. They're just doing it until they can just have a big stack of Bitcoin. You can't just print more Bitcoin. That's why they're stacking as much as they possibly can, similar to what the government is saying, right? Welcome, everyone. Hope you are having a great Sunday. Let's go through the updates. So, Bitcoin Therapist, he posts, financial advisors are now recommending a minimum of 10% invested in Bitcoin for a strong portfolio. Last year, this number was as low as 1 to 3%. I mean, it was like crazy for financial analysts to even forecast or say that, investing in the crypto was a good thing. Now, you probably won't even have a job as a financial advisor to not recommend crypto. So Rick Edelman, he's very well known. He's saying bigger Bitcoin hodl, time for 10 to 40% of portfolio in crypto, says financial advisor. What does that mean? That's really changing the financial markets, how we look at the infrastructure, the system for investing. we hear a lot about S&P 500 index funds and all that, but now it's like, well, what about Bitcoin? Should I be investing into Bitcoin as well? And I think that's why there's companies that hedge crypto like Coinbase, and we'll be talking about strategy as well. Eventually, having strategy will allow for these type of traditional investors to have a hedge. So when will MSTR actually get into the S&P 500? That's very well coming. Josh Mandel, he posts, as the 4th of July approaches, corn got to be knee high by the 4th of July. So here's an interesting comment that he put. This has been a test of the emotional Bitcoin system. Had this been an actual emergency, you would have seen me open a perp account and short Bitcoin. You know that I'm just that crazy. So Elon Trump news, Bitcoin dropped. Middle East tension, Bitcoin dropped. What happened? Bitcoin remains strong, very bullish. Bitcoin continues to climb. Josh Mandel, I would give him a follow if you haven't already done so. What is he forecasting? He's saying that Bitcoin can end at 115,000 before end of Q2. Very well achievable. I think that it's possible. We will see. All right, so Jared, with the question, so when is CleanSpark going to blast off, and how much do you think of it will go up if Bitcoin hits 125, 150, 175, and 200K? Very great question, Jared. We will be covering, CleanSpark technical analysis. I will be giving you perspective of that. So thank you for your question. We will cover the lovely CleanSpark play. All right, so let's continue. HODL 15. So what's crazy is, we got like back then we only had a few select companies holding on to Bitcoin, but now we're losing count of all the companies that are, hedging Bitcoin. Top 100, number 100, company, they have, 19 Bitcoins. That's actually a lot. Out of all the 100 companies, these 100 companies hold on to 834,000 Bitcoin. But look at it. Strategy holds like, most of that, close to 600,000 Bitcoin. And how much will Saylor be announcing tomorrow? Put it in the chat. Let me know what your prediction is. How high do you think, Saylor will be announcing? So he's saying in 21 years, you'll wish you'd bought more. So how big will this orange dot be come tomorrow? Will Saylor announce a purchase of, going above 600,000 or have it cap at even 600,000? We will see. Let's take a look at this comparison. So just look at the big boys. I mean, MSTR, MetaPlanet, Semler Scientific. Now, what's not factored into here are the miners. So you got like Mara with a big coddle as well. I think they're over 50,000 Bitcoins. I mean, and then, come Tuesday, we will hear the announcement of their mining production numbers. But just look at the MNAV. I mean, MSTR 1.9, it's ready for a squeeze. I really do think it's ready for a squeeze. MetaPlanet, it went from like $3 to $15. It's taken a pullback to like $10. It's been consolidating. I think a lot of the money inflows have gone into MetaPlanet. It shifted out from Semler Scientific, but the fact that it has a minus 30% on the performance year to date, I think the money inflows are going to soon enough go back into Semler Scientific as well as strategy. Things are going to front run the fact that, we're going to hear a lot more about S&P 500 rate cuts and a beautiful, beautiful Q2 earnings report that's going to be coming out for strategy. That's going to create a big time, FOMO herd into strategy. I really do think that strategy is going to have a real big run up in terms of its share price. All right. So thank you all for joining. Put your comments and questions in the chat. We'll cover all of that. We'll be covering IREN, Hive Digital, just based on your requests, as well as CleanSpark as well. If you want more, we will cover more. Just put it in the chat. Let's continue. So Lynn Alden, Lynn Alden, she's very, she's well known. I mean, just listening to her at the Bitcoin conference, she was basically talking about how the United States deficit will continue. She uses the term "nothing stops this train." While inflation goes up, while the U.S. deficit goes up, that's inevitable. And what's really the main counter to that? Having a Bitcoin in your investment strategy. And what she's saying is that if MSTR's MNAV were to drop to 1x tomorrow at current Bitcoin price levels, their total return since adopting their Bitcoin strategy in August of 2020 would still have exceeded Bitcoin's total return during that time frame. Let's do a comparison. In purple is strategy, in orange is Bitcoin percent change. We see like a big difference in terms of MSTR's performance versus Bitcoin's, price. Is this because they have a big HODL, which is why there's an exponential factor to it? I believe so. And just look at the difference with investing into QQQ and S&P 500. Obviously all of these have done well, but look at strategy in terms of how well it's done. That's just to that's to paint the picture of how strong strategy is. Even though the last 3 months Bitcoin has outperformed strategy, just look at this whole entire like difference in terms of the performance. Post driven, he posts 155,000 Bitcoin in July, MSTR 605 book it. How high do you guys think Bitcoin will go in July? And what does that mean for strategy if it were to go to 155K? Will it be 600 or do you think it'll go even further beyond that? All right, we're looking at Bitcoin price 108,473. Let's see how Bitcoin goes. It might just break out to 109, 110, later today. We will see. All right, so MSTR, they're front running, soon enough, they're going to announce really good Q2 earnings report. Just looking at Tesla's qualification into S&P 500, it was only up from then and it's only up from here. What does that mean for when strategy enters S&P 500? Key thing is that's going to attract a lot of investors, and you know price will just continue to go up, and of course we will get like reverse splits, but that's a good thing. That'll just psychologically change investments, increasing the propensity for those who would want to invest into strategy because of the cheaper share price cost, even though you get more quantity of shares with the reverse split. All right, so let's continue. So, let's go look at technical analysis. William Javer, what up, man? What's going on, man? I've been worried about you. I'm glad that you're back on live. I know it's a good thing to take a break, but you know what? We gotta stay consistent. I'm glad that you're alive, and I'm glad you're here, William. All right, so taking a look at technicals. All right, so we're looking at the daily performance of Bitcoin. I got the Ichimoku cloud as the indicator, also the MACD. Look at what happened from like May through June. I mean, 2 months of data. We had just bearish convergence, these red inverse MACDs, you know, that caused a pullback from like 111,000, all the way to like 98,000. But you know what? We're now creating the new cycle. We're above the Ichimoku cloud. We're about to break out to potentially new all-time high. We're at 108,000. We're only a few percentage away for Bitcoin to reach its all-time high. S&P 500, Nasdaq just reached its, price discovery. What does this mean? Bitcoin hasn't done so yet. It's going to play catch up. In fact, it's going to dominate. We know Bitcoin is the scarce limited supply. Most of the assets still are in the traditional, markets in bonds and all that. But Bitcoin, it's going to be a 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 10 trillion, 1 it will bypass gold. This is looking very good. I really do think the technicals are screaming for July. We'll be seeing something like 120K upside. In fact, people are saying it's going to go far beyond that, but 120 is very well achievable. That's like, I think, 9% gain or 8% gain from where we are right now. So definitely some huge upside. All right. So in the chat, David, do you think non-HPC AI miners will eventually catch up in price? Of course, David. Of course. Everything comes in ebbs and flows. AI sector got beat up in like January, February, March, April, and it just got a reversal. But that doesn't mean that stocks that aren't in AI aren't going to go up. They're going to get their fair share as well. Every stock has to have its have its run. All right, so let's look at strategy for a second. So MSTR, my forecast overall, just looking at technicals, and I really do think that we have upside for MSTR to get to like, I'd say that 1,000 range come 2025. I think that next parabolic move is coming. We had that parabolic move from like January to December last year. So it's only a matter of time. We had that pullback towards the second half of the year, uh, which is, we had the first half of the year of 2025 pullback, but now we're going to have it, run up. So I think that, things are going to look very good for strategy. All right. Taking a look at Riot Platforms, definitely a stock to keep an eye on. Riot Platforms, we're looking at it from a zoomed out view, 2017 to 2025. Okay, so we're looking at 8 years of data points. But look at 2017 when Bitcoin had its run up, bull cycle. Then we had RSI get up to like it popped up above like 90. It went from like $3 all the way up to $46. And then they had a pullback. And then years later, in the last bull cycle, 2020, 2021, it went from like $2, $3 all the way up to $81, where the RSI peaked at 91. But we haven't had an RSI of anything similar to that since then. So it's been many years. And now that we're in this new Bitcoin bull cycle, will history repeat itself? It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when the market makers allow for the stock price to run up, they will push up the stock price as there's increased flow market sentiment based on news, based on multiple variables like Bitcoin price going up, you know, I think there's a lot of potential. And just based on the historical data, we tend to see big time RSI run ups. I call these the big waves based on the RSI. So when will it happen? Can it happen in Q2? No, can it happen in Q3, Q4? It's very well possible. So be on the lookout for, Riot Platforms. All right. So looking at CleanSpark. So CleanSpark, similar deal. I mean, we've seen this puppy run last bull cycle. I mean, it went from $1 to $45. That's 45x during the last bull cycle. RSI was 90. And it was until 2023. It went from like $2 to like $24 within a matter of weeks. I mean, RSI didn't really peak at that time. It had like, close to 80 RSI, but since then we haven't had it peak. So I do think that we're just having this cup and handle formation, bullish, you know, bull flag, established here. Maybe very possible as Bitcoin runs up. I think that it's very possible that we can hit, $30, $40 at a minimum this year for CleanSpark. So in terms of what you're asking for, Jarrett, 125K Bitcoin, you know, I very well see that CleanSpark can reach, you know, 16, $18, 150. We may be looking at $20, 175, 200K. You may see, you know, 30, 40 upside, even more than that. And that applies for all of the other miners as well. Oh, so David, thank you. I mean, everything's live session right now, so I appreciate that. I mean, let's take a look at the technicals. I mean, I can't even keep up with all this, so thank you. You know, just looking at this, I mean, let's go on the 30-minute clock. All right. We're seeing it run up. Bitcoin keep running up, baby. Let's keep going. This is looking very good. All right. We're on that 30, you know, on the 30 minute. Um, Looks like Bitcoin's running up. I will also share with you an altcoin that I've been holding on for quite some time, and I would monitor this altcoin. A lot of people are saying altcoins aren't running, but you know what? I'm still down on this play, but I'm holding because I believe that we're looking at something great here. I mean, SEI, I mean, on the weekly, you see this intersection point, May 5th, and now we're seeing MACD reversal. Look at that volume, lots of volume there. Um, you know, it had, you know, that run up to like 117, 120, and then ran up to like 73 cents, got to 10 cents. But just be on the lookout for all of these, you know, plays. Bitcoin, 108,000 as we speak. This is looking very solid. All right. So, Dave Allen, question: what do you think of IREN? We're going to be talking about IREN as well. So, just, you know, we'll be doing technical analysis of IREN. Definitely, that's coming up. I'm not an expert, but some say big resistance at around 108,800. I think that we're going to break through that 108,000. I know there's a lot of resistance there, but let's see. Can we break through that 108,000 in the next couple hours? William with the question: do you think the Trump administration will suppress Bitcoin to get in at a cheap price? William, I know that you were forecasting that Bitcoin is going to have a pullback. I think Bitcoin already did have its pullback, you know, from January through April timeframe. So the government, I'm thinking, has already purchased Bitcoin. They're just not required to announce any of that. I mean, they have a hodl stack, so you know, with 250,000 Bitcoins hodl, they would very much prefer that Bitcoin price goes up, and anything that they buy would just be, you know, icing on the cake. We've seen, you know, Bitcoin drop like recently below 100K. Even, you know, Trump Media, True Social, the company got approved for a $2.5 billion purchase. I think they already bought, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that. He's front running it for sure. I mean, his family's buying into Bitcoin miners like Hut 8, and, you know, just investing into like, you know, ETF, stable coins and all that. So, you know, with DJT stock, I think that DJT is very well going to do well as well. So be on the lookout for. But where we are right now, Bitcoin at 108,600, you know, we're looking very solid right now. But let's continue. Strategy, I'm thinking in the overnight, it might be, I haven't checked yet, but with at this rate, it might be like, you know, 2% into overnight trading. This is looking very good. Strategy to at least $1,000 by 2025. Let's say if, you know, July Bitcoin pumps, this slope might get even more steep, and we can get, you know, even up to that upside, you know, quicker with higher velocity torque. Riot Platforms, we talked about that. I'll skip. CleanSpark, be on the lookout for CleanSpark. It can have a big run up as well, so be on the lookout for that as well. It's been a long time since we've seen RSI pop into that 70, 80 range. So definitely CleanSpark is something to watch out for. Let's take a look at IREN. We hear a lot about IREN. IREN has really shown proof of a growing company. I mean, they got ATMs and all that. They sell their Bitcoin so that they can invest it into their company, especially positioning into advancing AI and adding value to AI customers. But look at this. I mean, key thing is, since 2022, I mean, 3 years out, what are we seeing? Low point. What are we seeing? Low point that's higher. We call this higher lows, right? Higher basement lows. What about the top points? Higher highs. So we continue to see it hovering in this upward trajectory. Iron is looking like it's a safe haven play right now, even though it went from, you know, December time of like, $16 all the way to $5. It's showing strength right now. Most of you are wondering, is it going to have a pullback? It's really possible that it can have a pullback on the near term, like tomorrow. If Bitcoin keeps going up, I think, it's going to continue to run, but just be cautious because when you look at it really depends on your investment strategy, right? If you're a long-term holder, I wouldn't worry so much. Your cost average is low. But let's say if, you have a different approach where you're trying to you're trying to gain on profits. Anything is possible with IREN, you know, um, one other stock to watch out for, as we hear a lot about, AI and all that, is Big Bear AI. Man, look at this puppy. What are we seeing? MACD back in February, it shot up from like November to like February within like 3 months span, like $1 to $10. That's like 9x gain right there, right? Close to 10x gain. And then it had a big pullback. You saw that, that inverse, behavior with the bearish convergence. We see this inverse red signal candle. RSI topped out, overbought situation. Typically whenever you have RSI 80, that's when, we're going to see a pullback. But then what are we seeing just recently? The MACD intersection. We're now seeing that very first green, MACD sign. So I actually took some profits off of Big Bear. I mean, investing into it for like less than, I'd say, for a week, taking a close to 40% gain. I'm happy with that. Getting profits, of like 40%. Big Bear. Question is, what happens if it goes up? It may go up even more. But when you look at the RSI, let's zoom out even further. Look at the RSI. It's at 71. RSI may, cool off a bit. It's basically telling us it's in an overbought situation. Yes, it can, break through this prior resistance, $10. It could just hover beyond this, surpass this $10. But one thing to keep in mind is that it may cool off as well. So just be on the lookout for that if you want to protect your profits. But I would monitor BBAI because let's say if BBAI drops, let's say it gets back into like that $4 range, that's definitely a good opportunity to load up again because these are fluctuating plays where you can make some money. So monitor it, study it. Definitely a big company that's growing along with companies like IREN. JG just joined as well. Thank you, JG, for joining. I appreciate you, man. Big time supporter. Yep, you're right, William. I expect the retrace for BBAI. Yeah, that's why I deloaded, took profits, and just monitoring, let the RSI cool off. I've learned over the many years, um, I've been married to certain stocks, and I've learned my lesson. And taking profits at times is important because you can potentially just remain greedy, and then all of a sudden, all the funds just disappear. So it's important to understand, to de-risk, take profits, let it cool off. You can re-enter at a lower cost as well with house money. All right, so can you also talk about Cypher and Wolf? Yes, we will cover Cypher and Wolf. In fact, let me put that in Cypher. All right, so Cypher, okay, so this is just purely on technicals, okay? So I'm just gonna pull up the weekly. I like looking at data where it gives you a week-to-week overview. This is a good sign, just looking at, Cypher, we're seeing on the weekly an intersection point. We're seeing a reversal pattern. I mean, similar with all the other miners, right? $7 top November, got down to like 192, 426. It's looking very good. It's gradually picking up. For it to drop this much, it's expected for it to build back up. I mean, you look at this, it hasn't like V-shaped up yet to that $7. So like $4 to $7, it's like 40% away. Companies like Core Scientific, IREN, they've already V-shaped up to that level. So definitely these companies will eat as well. RSI 42, I think that because it was in the oversold situation, it will gradually increase as well. So I think just based on technicals, Cypher looks solid. Along with TerraWolf. I mean, Wolf, same deal. I mean, in November, $9 got down to $2. Now it's at $4, but it's like way further away from its recent top off. It just got the reversal on the MACD. Relative strength was at that oversold situation. It's gradually picking up. I do think there's upside as well in TerraWolf. So just based on the technicals, I think that Wolf and Cypher are potential good plays as well. It hasn't really topped off in terms of the relative strength. What do you think about Mara? Yeah, let's talk about Mara. I'm also invested in Mara as well, and what we've seen just recently with Mara, a lot of people are getting impatient, but you know what? Remain focused. Why? Because for every Bitcoin run, we see historic runs. I mean, 2017, look at this RSI 20. And then all of a sudden, what happened? Boom, RSI shot up. I mean, going from like $2, $40, and then RSI oversold 27 around 2020. Then what happened? 38 cents to $80. Right now, everyone's like, what's going on? But over the long-term course, we're seeing higher highs. And look at the RSI. I mean, it's similar to what we've seen over in the last bull cycle. I mean, 2030 right now. Mara, I think, in this quarter, I think that very high chances for it to get back in the $30 range. 20, we're gonna see that $20 breakout in like the next couple weeks, in like 1 to 2 weeks. We'll see Mara hovering back in the 20s. But it's been beat down for so long. Bitcoin runs, this thing has, close to actually more than 50,000 Bitcoins right now. That all hasn't been discussed about yet, but ooh, look at Bitcoin. It's running. So this puppy is running. So Mara's gonna have a nice field day. A lot of people are like neglecting Mara, but Mara is, I'd say, the king of the miners. They have the most HODL. So technically, they have the biggest, money reserve. They have the biggest bang for their buck right now because of the amount of Bitcoin that they have. To get to like 0 to 10,000 Bitcoins is very hard. You have CleanSpark at 12,000. You have Riot at like, close to 20,000. But Mara has a factor of like 5 times that, right? So definitely, Mara is going to have a field day as well. I think that right now, buying calls for Mara, buying stocks of Mara is definitely a good thing. Soon enough, you won't be able to get, Mara at these prices. $14 is great. Buying at 980 was even better just recently, but I don't think we're going to see those times anymore. $15, huge upside. You could have a quick, 1x gain in the near term. But I really do think that as Bitcoin makes it to the next run, RSI, once it runs up, 80, Mara can, have a big blast off to like $80 even. Core Scientific. Core Scientific. William, I know you're a big time Mara believer, and I know it's been tough, but you know what? When things get beat up, things will run up very fast. Look at IREN, look at Core Scientific, look at CleanSpark, having a steady rise. Things are gonna flip the switch. Look at this puppy, Core Scientific, higher highs, higher lows. This company is just trending in the right direction. You look at this ugly red, but now we're going to see that big green formation, relative strength. One thing to keep an eye on is just be mindful of the RSI peaking. Most people are wondering, what's going to happen? One thing to keep in mind is because the RSI is at 80, be careful. Let's say if you're thinking about buying CORZ, or if you have CORZ, is now a good time to take profits. I leave that up to you. You're a long-term investor. You have a cost average of $5 or $8 or $12. It really depends on what your strategy is. Do you have stop losses or you don't play that strategy? Leave that up to you. But just keep in mind, relative strength of 81, there's a propensity for people to start creating puts and all that for this. But you never know. CoreWeave announces a premium deal. This thing might shoot up to like 20 next week. We don't know until we see. All right, so I hope this session is giving you a nice perspective. But look, with Bitcoin at 108,700, is Bitcoin going to be breaking out today to 109,000? We're only a couple hundred away for that. Here's an interesting altcoin, SEI, having its breakout as well. Take a look at StockTwits. See what's trending on StockTwits. All right, so what's trending? We got Shiba, we got BBAI on the trending. We got Palantir, SoFi. I think a couple of you are invested in to SoFi. Palantir is just doing amazing. They were like what, $6 before and then went up to like $134. Impressive movements. That just shows the maturity of a company. But is BBAI going to be something that Palantir is like over the course of time? It's possible. I wouldn't rule that out. Wow, Rigel Pharmaceuticals. It's impressive to see RIGL pop up as well. Interesting. I think there was a reverse split with this stock. That's why it's up. What other stocks are you guys, watching? Put it in the chat. One thing I want to share is, I've been looking at, okay, I'm going to pull up some different plays that we're going to talk about that I would recommend. All right, so let me just share with you some different plays I've been getting into. So Trump Media, DJT. I've been buying calls on this. I've been buying leaps. Um, also some stocks of DJT. Most of you are wondering why even invest in the DJT? Why invest in the DJT? People will tell us, right, buy when there's blood on the streets. Well, that's a true statement. I mean, look at DJT at one point back in, October, November when Trump won. Look at this, it ran to $54. And then this year, January, I mean, 5 months ago, $43. RSI peaked at 84. RSI hit that tip of 70 during that time. But look now, RSI is oversold. This is when you want to buy. I would highly recommend loading up on DJT if you want to make some money. And again, this isn't financial advice. Always do your research, but this is where the money's going to be. We look back, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. I don't think DJT is going to be anywhere where the current price is. $17 is definitely a steal. Definitely, how low can this go? I mean, I don't think it can go any lower. I mean, at most, it may drop to like $15 or more, but there's so much potential. Just look at the technicals on this puppy. RSI at high 20s. This is the time to load up before the next leg up. And just based on fundamentals, I really think that they're going to announce, Bitcoin purchase. $2.5 billion got approved by the SEC. DJT is a Bitcoin treasury company. They may have already bought Bitcoin, but we haven't heard that yet. So just be mindful that DJT can run up, and just mark this because, when you monitor this a week from now, a month from now, 3 months from now, you're going to see big greens coming. All right. So with Bitcoin going up, also keep in mind Ethereum has potential for a breakout as well. All right. So, just because Bitcoin goes up doesn't mean, crypto's not going to go up. You're going to have Ethereum go up as well. And, ETHE is definitely an ETF to consider. Again, this isn't investment advice, but just looking at its performance. I mean, 2021, $47. Just 2024, this thing went to $33. So where it is right now at like $20, I mean, during that sell-off Bitcoin at 74,000, this was $12. But it hasn't even got to its prior resistance, 6 months ago. So current price at $20, I really do see potential V shape coming up with ETHE as well. All right. So what comments, questions do you have that I can answer? Here's another one. AIS ETF, Artificial Intelligence Super Cycle, recently created. AI is definitely not going away. There's potential with AIS here as well. I mean, the top companies that they hold on to, like I think they have like 5% into like SK Hynix, semiconductors and all that. So I really do think that AIS has potential upside to continue to go up from here. So be on the lookout for that as well. All right. Well, I hope that you all found this live session valuable. Thank you all for joining. I'm grateful to see folks who have been supporting this channel on here. With William coming back, appreciate that. JG, Alan, returning, David, Jarrett, Mark. Thank you all for joining. Alican joining, DRAG. Where do you see Riot price in a few weeks? So yeah, we'll cover that. And any last minute questions, go ahead and ask. I will cover Riot. Let's go back to Riot. So in case you missed it, DRAG, good evening. Thanks for joining. Just look at Riot. I mean, last bull cycle, RSI 91, went from like $1 to like $83. That's like an 83x gain. And then the bull cycle before last bull cycle, back in 2017, $3 to like $48. That's a huge, huge run up. But the RSI hasn't gone up since, right? It's gone up, above that 80 RSI every bull cycle. So what I have here with this circle, will history repeat itself? As we're talking about Bitcoin expected to, gap up to 150K, 250K, how high is the relative strength going to shoot up? This is going to be the key signal for the FOMO herd. We see this RSI start, gapping up. July could be a very big potential where Riot can break out into like $18 to $25. So I hope that answers your question. All right, William SYNX. Let's take a look at that. SYNX. All right. So, in terms of the company, I don't know the fundamentals on this company. I don't know, like, what the business outlook looks like. So, just basing this off of pure technical analysis. So, if you believe that this company has potential in terms of its business model and understanding how it makes money and all that, just basing it off of the technicals, I mean, buy low, sell high, right? I mean, key thing is it didn't drop just recently. It dropped, since beginning of December. So it's been dropping for, I'd say 6 months now. So you don't want to buy in, after it dropping like, weeks after or a month later. But, this big drop off, $4 to $1, that happened March. So it's been, like 4 months since then. So, looks good in terms of, let's say, if you have conviction in this play, I would say, jump on it. So that's a good one, William. Oh, military headset company that just got drone tech and headset news. Wow, that's interesting. I'm gonna follow this. So SYNX. Thank you for that, William. It's all about information sharing, right? And as much as you all trust me with these plays, I mean, I trust you all with what's being monitored as well. So I added, SYNX to the watch list just to learn. DRAG. Okay, so I'm just concerned about Riot with its venturing off into HPC AI. I think it's icing on the cake. You got three facilities mining Bitcoin right now. They just purchase more land, you know, to use that for increased throughput for HPC AI. I think it's really that combo package. Trump says the United States will be the powerhouse of crypto and AI. So, you know, having a business model that focuses on generating revenue based on mining and HPC and AI, that's icing on the cake. Yeah, William. I mean, buy low, sell high, right? I mean, better than buying at like 6 months ago. So I don't think things are gonna be bad on that. Especially with military, defense, technology, BBAI, software companies that's supporting the military, defense, nuclear as well. I've been hearing a lot about nuclear. So let me just share with you all what I've learned. SMR, I mean, look at this puppy run, man. I mean, this is a new scale power corporation, but look at this. Since January 2024, $1 to $38. I mean, can you imagine being invested into this for like a year now? I mean, look at this channel of like growth, right? It doesn't go down that much, but like when it does hit a red, so like it may go up to like I'd say 40, it may go up to like 55 and then have a stair step down once it gets back to like 25 and then load back up. So, let's say if SMR goes back to 25 or like, 20, that's a good time to load up as well. So, D-Rad, you're right. If Riot gets a solid AI contract, do you know anything about GPUs, hyperscale data? Uh, so, going to the Bitcoin conference, learning about, the technology as far as the mining capacity at the Corsicana facility, using Bitmain, also the cooling technology. As far as the GPUs that they'll be using, I think the fact that they have a prior leader from Hut 8, Hut 8 is using like NVIDIA chips and all that. And now that they got a new leader on board for HPC AI, think about that. With all this news from IREN and Core Scientific, Riot is able to gather all of the information that their competitors are doing. The fact that they have the land and they're going to scale out their operation, they're able to install the latest technology, right? Because why install the same technology when they can get a better grade technology, because they're starting out later? I think that's the benefit, even though, the benefit for the pros for starting off later is, you're later in the game, but you get to enter the game understanding and studying the business that your competitors are in. Oh, GPUs. See, there's so many different plays. Um, that's, you know, GPUs. Oh my goodness, this thing looks scary. Yeah, I mean, $1 to $4 just recently. Yeah, I wouldn't touch this. I Yeah, no worries about that. But just looking at this is just like recipe for DK. Um, yeah, I mean, you don't see a heart. This is a flat line. You don't see much until just recently it popped up. So $10 and then drops back down. Because you've seen a long duration of decay, I wouldn't touch this. Yeah, I would stay out of this. You rather. Um, Let me pull something up. You know, for you to look at that that's more attractive. All right, so most of you might have heard this already. Arrow. Let's say if you got time to invest, if you got like if you can like day trade or do any of that. Arrow, watch out for Arrow. I mean, it went from like $12 to like like $50, and then it dropped to like $20, and then to 27 the next day. Each day this thing runs up like 20%, drops down 12%, next day up. But if you want to like get like 10 to 20% gain, wait for a day where it drops like 15%, load up, and then when it pops up, you know, 15%, 20%, you can sell. But I would rather play that than, something like GPUs where it was like a straight flat line. All right. Well, I hope that helps. Thank you all for your questions. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to alliseeisW. We'll do this again. I'll start earlier next Sunday. But thank you. I appreciate you all joining. Let's take a look at Bitcoin right now. 108,000. It's flirting with close to 109,000. So we will see how far Bitcoin can go. But thank you all. Take a look at my video I released today, and I make videos on the daily. Follow me on X. I appreciate it, pal. Thank you guys. Take care.